Do you really need to localize your product and marketing content? Or can you just go with English? Hello and welcome to Global SaaS Focus. This is a series of show podcasts that explore key topics about growing B2B SaaS businesses in other countries. I'm Nicola Calabrese, founder of Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally.
And my name is Clément Dumont. I'm one of the co-founders of the Growth Syndicate, and we help B2B tech companies with their growth strategies.
Today, we're going to discuss whether you need to localize your product and marketing content, or if you can just get away with leaving everything in English. Clément, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Yes. So again, I think to give you a really different introduction that I give until now, it depends, I think, for a lot of things, right? It will depend on your industry, on your market, on what your company does. What I've experienced is, so I localized a lot in European markets and the US. I think those are the main markets I focused on, right? So I will talk based on this, probably based on experience. What I've seen is that you have a lot of countries like probably the Nordics, the Netherlands, where you can get, you can go with just English for, I would say, not for all of them, but for quite a lot of industries, you can go in English because, people are used to do business in English. They used to search in English, they used to communicate in English. So it can make it easy at the beginning to just test a little bit the market. But what I experienced as well, and you've also traveled a lot, Nicola. As you know, I'm French. I grew up in Spain, and I moved to the Netherlands. And I can, talk by experience by saying that countries like France or Spain, the localization aspect is going to be way more important, for example, from English than it is in the Netherlands. Of course, again, it depends on the industry, right? But from all the companies that I've worked with, what I've realized is, even if my home market was the Netherlands, often everything content-wise, product-wise was in English. Okay, while every time we're localizing in countries like Germany, France, Spain, we would have to localize at least everything that's, marketing communication, marketing collaterals, website. The product's probably not right away, but at one point, if you really want to scale, it's something you want to invest in, but often it's more complex. But yeah, I would say this is my 2 cents on that topic for now.
And I do agree. My experience is the same as well. When you go, for example, to Latin America or some parts of Asia, the level of English, again, depending on the vertical, it varies. But in general, the level of English is proficiency is lower than, let's say, Nordic countries or like the Netherlands in Europe. And I have a fun story about this, about the product being in English, because many years ago, I worked for a big company and they distributed devices to all the employees around the world. And the devices had the UI in English only. And actually, apparently some users in Latin America, they got together and they created a contraband version of the app in Spanish, so they can actually use the UI in their own language. So there was let's say a big signal that they definitely needed to invest in localization, at least in some markets. Maybe some other markets might be fine with English, but I can assure you, like in some countries, also like countries that are, I'm thinking Europe, especially Southern Europe, and Central Europe, we're very used to having everything localized, like in Germany, France, Italy, Spain. There's also like a big dubbing industry. So even like films, everything is usually local.
Exactly.
So also that's why users are expecting things to be localized. If they see it in English, in a way, I guess they might be feeling like you don't really care about this market if everything is in English. You're not believing enough in that market, maybe. But I do agree that when it's like technical users, for example, like you have developers, the API documentation is one of those kind of documentation that even when companies localize in the local language, the API documentation might still be in English because they kind of used to that, and it's integral to the way they work with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
And the last thing that I think it's important to keep in mind is in some, let's say, high-stake industry like healthcare or finance, you might have to localize for, let's say, regulation purposes. So you need to have things localized because otherwise you're not compliant. That's like a no-brainer. Like if you have to, you have to.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely correct. You have some industries you don't have choice, right? So I was more referring in my case, where it comes from, I would say, kind of B2B SaaS. Probably more MarTech focus, or talking to business people. Yeah, and usually you can your product can be in English for a bit longer, and then you can localize it later on.
And you can test it as well as usual. Like you can test
100%.
it if you see in a market you see that some churn because users are not adopting it. So maybe you might consider like testing the localizing version in there and see if that changes the number.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
Okay, I think that's a good place to close this one.
Yeah, perfect.
Hi, Nicola here. Thank you for joining us on this special episode of the Multilingual Content Podcast, powered by Undertow. We create and manage localization programs for B2B SaaS companies so they can grow globally. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and remember to subscribe and give 5 stars to our podcast. Your contribution makes all the difference. See you next time.